Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating a pattern that you can find for free on lionbrand.com called the Openwork Shawl. We can take a quick look at the pattern here, which I've printed out. It is the Openwork Shawl again. It's pattern number L50239, found free on their website, and if you'd like to follow along with the written pattern during this video, that would be great. This pattern calls for, if we look at the materials, 1 ball of Lion Brand shawl in a ball. It's demonstrated in the pictures in the pattern with Restful Rainbow, but I'll be demonstrating it here with a ball of Mindful Mauve. It also calls for a J-hook and a needle to finish it off with. So here you can see I've got one almost finished that I'll be finishing up with you at the end of this video. I've kind of had to squish it into this picture here so you can see it. I love the way the color changes work with shawl in a ball. You're going to start with one color and just gradually changes into another and then changes back again. This particular ball ended up beautifully balanced for this pattern with the palest portion in the center. This pattern is worked end to end. So I started down here at this end and worked my way all the way to the other end. And if you're an experienced crocheter, you can probably see already exactly how it's made. Double crochets worked in double crochet for a nice sort of almost like a filet mesh. Let me set this one aside and we'll start the pattern together. Now with shawl in the ball, I like to work these balls of yarn from the outside in. I don't like to look for an end on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the label. And then to make this pattern, if we look at our written instructions, let's see, which is of course the one page I didn't pick up. Let me pick that up. Here we go. You can see another beautiful picture of the shawl. And it says to start with a chain of 67. Now I'm not going to make you watch me chain for 67, but I am going to demonstrate the first few. We're going to start with a slip knot. If you're new to crochet, you should know that the slip knot, is almost always implied. So we make a slip knot to begin, then we chain for 67. So I'm going to go ahead and chain about 11 or so just to demonstrate with. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, pull up a little bit more yarn here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now let's go ahead and zoom in so we can take a look at our chain here. All right, here we are looking at the chain. Now you can see that shawl in a ball has a lot of texture to it, so it can be difficult to find exactly the parts of the chain that you want to work into. It also can be difficult to count your chains if you're a new crocheter. So you want to really be sure to count them carefully as you begin, and then if you need to, you can add an extra one just to be sure you didn't miss one somewhere, and then take it out at the end, or just tighten it up. If you tighten that first slip knot, it should make that first chain go away if you needed to. But let's go ahead and begin. Well, we're going to pretend I've got 67 chains. What I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over, and then I am going to skip the first 5 chains closest to the hook. When we count chains, we never count the chain that's on the hook. We start with the most recent one made, the one finished right here. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's where I'm going to put my double crochet, right there in that 5th chain. I like to go into the loop that's on the back hump, but you can go into whichever loop or loops you prefer to start working into the chain. With these, if you find it difficult to tell exactly which chain you're working into, the great thing about this pattern and this yarn is that it'll kind of be hidden. So you can just kind of work into it where you can if you get real confused. So I've made a double crochet. Then I'm going to begin the pattern that will carry us through the rest of the pattern. I'm going to chain 1, I'm going to yarn over, skip a chain, double crochet in the next chain, like so. All right, and then I'm going to chain 1, yarn over, skip the next chain, double crochet in the chain after that. If you haven't made a double crochet before, it's made with the yarn over. You insert your yarn, or your hook in the yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. and that's all there is to a double crochet. So we're going to continue this pattern. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Now, if I had started out with a chain of 67, like this pattern called for, then when I got here to the end of my chain, at the end of row 1, I would have 33 double crochets and 32 chain 1s to count. Now, again, I'm not making you watch me do all 67 or 33 or however you want to think about it, but I want to show you with this little small swatch. When I would count the double crochets for this row, I would count this last one, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then because of the 4 we skipped, that's actually going to be counted as another one. So it's right here in front of me. I actually have 5 double crochets, even though we actually made 4. 3 of these chains count as a double crochet, and the other one right there counts as a chain 1. So that'll come in handy when we work back across for row 2. Now row 2 is going to be the same as the rest of the rows for the whole rest of this pattern. We're going to start with a chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, this chain 4 acts as 2 things. It counts as a chain 3, 1, 2, 3. That chain 3 will count as our first double crochet of row 2, and then after that, a chain 1. So we're going to count that as a double crochet and a chain 1 as we begin working back across for row 2. So for row 2, I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to skip that chain, and I'm going to work right into the top of the double crochet. Now when you're working into the top of a double crochet like this, or most stitches, you want to try and go under both loops there at the top. Again, with this yarn, if you're a new crocheter, it can be difficult to spot those. So do your best, but really you want to kind of just feel your way with the hook. Yarn over, look at the top of the next double crochet there, skipping over that chain 1, we're going to go right to the next double crochet. You can kind of find the hole where the hook should be, and you see we've got 2 loops on top of the hook. That means we're doing the right place to make our double crochet. I'm going to pull up a little bit more yarn from our skein here. Let me show you what this yarn looks like from the end while I've got it. You can see the color changes that are going to happen inside this skein. Absolutely beautiful stuff. So, pull up a little bit more yarn, come back to our crocheting. Remember, we chain 1, then we yarn over, find the next double crochet, and go in there. Now, when we get to the end of row 2, which should again have 33 double crochets and 32 chain 1 spaces, that's the chain 1s in between the double crochets, for that last one, we're going to need to put it in top of the chain 3. So remember, we have 4 chains here that we skipped, and the first 3 act as a double crochet, and the other one acts as a chain 1. So we want to skip that chain 1 representative and pull it up here so you can see it really clearly. And then we want to work our double crochet in the next chain. This is probably one of the fiddliest parts, and it can be quite tricky. But the main thing is to try and get 2 loops on top of your hook and 1 loop underneath. There we are. See? Got 2 loops on top, 1 on the bottom. I'm going to yarn over. Get that hair out of my hand so we don't crochet the hair into there. Pull up a loop, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And if I hold this out like this here, and pull it up a little bit so it's in focus, you can see that we've got our nice fillet already started. Now, row 3 is going to be the exact same as row 2. So let's go ahead and do just that one together. I'm going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me grab it there. There we go. 4. Remember again, those first 3 are a double crochet, and the next one is a chain 1. So we work back the other direction. We just go to the next double crochet and double crochet in there, like so. Okay. Then we chain 1, go to the next double crochet, and double crochet in there. And that is really how you make this cowl, or excuse me, this shawl. Not a cowl, a shawl. And how do you know when you've reached the end? Well, for this pattern, it's when you're running out of yarn. When you don't have enough yarn left to make a whole nother row, that's when you know you've reached the end. But as for this row itself, Remember, we skipped the chain closest to the double crochet here. That's our chain 1. Go into the chain after that. That's the top of our chain 3, counted as a double crochet. And we've got a little tiny row 3 there. So I think, hopefully with that, you can see how this pattern comes together. This is a great pattern for relaxing with. You don't have to really memorize it. Just remember to put a chain 1 between your double crochets. Only put your double crochets in other double crochets. And as long as you have the same number across, you know you're on track. Let me show you one more time the one that's almost done here. We're going to have to pull out a little bit so we can see it. And there we can see the pattern, and you can see that mesh that I just demonstrated goes all through the shawl from top to bottom. Really, it's worked side to side since it's end to end. However you want to think about it. Let's see. And here I am at the end. I put a little stitch marker in my loop so I wouldn't lose it. Let me pull that out of the way. And you can see this is what I have left at the end of the ball of yarn. So I know that this is not going to be nearly enough to get me through a whole nother row. So just kind of keep an eye on it. If you think you might make it, you think you might not, you know, if you're happy with the length, you can go ahead and finish off whenever you're ready. We are finally ready to end the shawl. I've got that last loop here that was on my hook. So I want to cut it off into a reasonable amount to weave in. So 6 to 12 inches, whatever you're comfortable with. Set that excess aside. Go back to that loop. Then you can do it with your fingers, or you can do it with a hook. And just pull that last bit of yarn through the active loop, and you pull, and that finishes it off. And it's not going to go anywhere. It's just like the slip knot at the beginning. It's not going to go out on us. So what you want to do after this is, this is where we need to look at one of the needles. You remember the materials list, it said we needed a large blunt needle. This is sort of a standard yarn needle right here, sometimes sold as a tapestry needle. You can see it's got a really blunt end. Not going to hurt anybody unless you try really hard. And it's got a nice large eye to put the yarn through. So I'm going to go ahead, put that in there, and weave in my ends. With a pattern like this, it can be a little bit tricky because you don't have a nice solid fabric to weave it into. But it helps if you just sort of go along the stitches as best you can. Pull it up a little bit there so you can see it a little easier. And the key to something like this, weaving it in the ends, is just to do it for a really long time, as long as you can handle. Going along the stitches, like so, weaving them in, and then eventually, after you've gotten a little bit further away from where you started, what you want to do is come back the other direction. You see I went through this stitch this way, now I want to go back the other way, making sure not to go exactly the same path so that it doesn't just pull it right out what I already did. But you can just kind of keep going around, weave in your ends until you feel like they're really, really secure. And then when you finally got it really secure, you can go ahead and use your scissors and cut it off close to your crochet, and you'll be all finished. So that's all there is to making the Openwork Shawl by Lion Brand. You can see another pretty picture of it here. It uses one ball of shawl in a ball and one hook, and of course a needle. And that's all you need to make this beautiful shawl. Thanks so much for watching.